So this is the first passage analysis, so page 179 to 180, and it's a dialogue between Tiresias and Oedipus. Okay, so it just goes for this first page and then the second page as well. So that's what we're going to be doing. That's just the first passage. All right, so if we start at the start, what we need to be looking for are all the different language aspects to start off with. All right, so as we're reading, anything that we see as a language item, we're going to need to make note of it, highlight it, see how it's functioning. All right, what are some of the other things that we need to be considering? So any themes that are really obvious within the passage, within the dialogue. And then once we've annotated it all, we then need to look a little bit more broadly. So if you remember, we need to consider where is this scene in relation to the rest of the play. So what comes before it, what's after it, all of that sort of stuff. Make sense? All right, so let's go from the start. So we've got Tiresias saying, "Is that so? I charge you then, submit to that decree you just laid down. From this day onward, speak to no one, not these citizens, not myself. You are the curse, the corruption of the land." All right, so what do we notice straight away about the way that Tiresias is speaking in that section?
Challenging.
He is challenging, and how can you see that?
Using I, you.
Yeah, but what else? What else is there? Yep, and
Submit to that decree.
what about this stuff? Okay, so the exclamation marks, the punctuation gives you a bit of an idea about his tenor, all right? So the way that he is going about speaking about this situation with Oedipus, all right? And obviously that bit there, the use of the italics, emphasizes who his attack is against, all right? And then Oedipus's response, "You, shameless, aren't you appalled to start up such a story? You think you can get away with this?" I'll point this out in a second, but have a look. We have Oedipus questioning, and then Tiresias is responding. In terms of an overall structure, what is this? What is it called? Yes, okay, that's the example it is. It's Stichomythia. So what did Stichomythia relate to? Debating. Yep. So. Where is it? You don't need to be knocking. It's all good. They can also hear you saying that. So, I'll put it down the bottom here. So, we have an example of... So, Stichomythic dialogue. Yes. Right? But when you're doing your plan, you're going to have all your resources in front of you. Does that make sense? So this won't be as problematic. Later on in the year, maybe, but not now. All right? Now, you've got the Stichomythic dialogue. What does that relate to? Debate, okay? So we see between these two characters a debate going on. Right? So we've got that link already now to Greek culture. Yes? So we make that connection. Yes?
Is that also dramatic irony how he says, aren't you appalled to start such a story, when later on Oedipus starts off his own story about Creon sending Tiresias?
Is it dramatic irony or just irony? Just irony. So it's a really good pickup. Okay? So what he's referencing here is this part here. Aren't you appalled to start up such a story? This is irony that links to which part of the text is it? Yeah, and if I wanted to call it a section, what part of the text is it?
Episode.
Okay, so if I can fit it in here, the second episode between Oedipus and Creon, right? So you've got a language use, and now you're actually starting to arch out into the other sections of the play, which is really good. Okay, let's continue with this stichomythic dialogue, so this debate that's going on between the two of them, and we'll see who ends up really winning. Okay, I've already, the truth with all its power lives inside me. Who primed you for this? Not your prophet's trade. You did. You forced me, twisted it out of me. Now this, I think, is where you can start to really link in that dramatic irony, right? Because apart from everything else, this tragedy is really powerful because Oedipus brings it upon himself, right? And Tiresias is actually pointing that out right here, okay? So we can say it heightens dramatic irony as Oedipus brings the tragedy upon himself. All right, we're starting to see that. And almost, to reinforce that, to just add some more pain, what does Oedipus turn around and say? What? Say it again. I'll understand it better. All right? So that reinforces that irony. Okay? But at the same time, what are you hearing in the way that Oedipus is speaking to Tiresias? What's his attitude right now? Cocky. It's that really arrogant attitude. And what do we call this? Hubris. Excellent. Okay. So this arrogant tone relates to hubris, right? So you're then able to link that big idea into your discussions. Can you see how I'm just putting everything on the page? We haven't formed a contention yet. That's the next step. That's our planning. What you want to start off with is, here's the passage in front of me. I'm going to get everything that I can get out of it. And then once I've got it all there in front of me for both passages, then I'm going to go, all right, what am I going to talk about? What's my argument going to be? What's my contention? What's the focus for my analysis? Right now, it's, let me pick out everything. All right, let's keep going. And again, we continue this question and answer. Didn't you understand just now? Or are you tempting me to talk? All right, we'll turn over. So the rest of it, we're going to be finishing up here. No, I can't say I grasped your meaning. Out with it again. Okay? And if you have a look, the phrasing that's used here and the exclamation mark, again, link with that hubris. Link with Oedipus's self-confidence. And that hubris coming in the way of him understanding exactly what's going on, and again heightening that dramatic irony. I mean, look at what this says. I say you are the murderer you hunt. This is so early on in the play, right? We're only sort of 300 lines into the play, and you already have somebody giving him the answer, giving him the outcome. And that hubris is what is stopping him from realizing that. All right? So you get all the evidence that you need if you want us to generate a discussion about hubris.
What would you say about that line?
About the one that he's got there.
I say you are the murdering one. Is that what would you foretelling?
It is, but if you remember, with the culture that this was being performed in, they already knew. That reinforces that. From our perspective, we are the audience. We can say that that line reinforces the tragic irony. Okay? Yep.
When you talk about prophecy and fate, using this as
Well, you can in a more broad sense, because what is Tiresias?
The prophet.
A prophet, okay? And then you can link in the irony of the fact that he's a blind prophet. So by all means, you can definitely be talking about that.
Tiresias can see. He's blind, but he can see.
Yeah. Is that dramatic irony or just irony? Just irony, okay? So here, the fact that it says, I say, you are the murderer you hunt, this just reinforces, oops. So it reinforces the dramatic irony, okay? Then if you start making more broad discussions about fate, about destiny, if you're going to do that, and you could, because this is obviously the character that's most linked to. Yeah, okay? But it doesn't, it can stem from here, and then you can start drawing in other bits of the play, okay? Because remember, the way that this analysis works is you start with the passage, and then you work out. Let's keep going. Let's finish this off. That obscenity twice, by God, you'll pay. Well, he said it twice.
He made him type it twice.
Sorry?
But he made him say
Isn't that
twice.
how he loses Jocasta when he also loses justice?
Well, the obscenity, there's, I guess there's a bit of irony there. The obscenity is twofold. The obscenity in the prophecy is what?
Is the children and the mother.
Oh, no, what's the prophecy?
The
Children and
father,
his parents.
his father, and then gets with his mom.
Yeah, so you could, again,
Wouldn't the obscenity be like getting with his mom and then having children with her?
well, though the killing of the father is an obscene act as well. I think you're looking at obscene as just disgusting, not just what it is. Well, he's accusing Tiresias, but there's irony in it, isn't there? Okay, so let's put that in. All right, so ironic.
And he does pay.
Sorry.
At the end, Oedipus does pay for his obscenity twice.
But he does it himself.
But what is twice? Is it the two kids that he has, or is it a combination of him killing
He has 4 kids, doesn't he?
He has 4 children, yes.
Wait, who do you count as his children? Like,
But his children are like obviously going to be his children.
They are his children,
But
but they're also his siblings.
like his half siblings.
That's also twice.
Okay, so Oedipus is.
Children.
So what do you count the twice as?
The twofold obscenity, so father and mother.
Killing his father and then.
Oh.
Okay? Because the prophecy did have 2 aspects to it. You will murder your father and you will marry your mother. Okay?
What does the second word say?
Oedipus's obscenity.
Alright.
Sorry. Shall I say more so you can really rage? Much as you want, your words are nothing futile. Again, you've got more hubris coming out. You cannot imagine. I tell you, you and your loved ones live together in infamy. You cannot see how far you've gone in guilt. Again, we get that reinforcement of,
There's more irony.
yeah. You think you can keep this up and never suffer? Indeed, if the truth has any power.
Is hubris blind?
Sorry?
Is hubris also blind?
Well, it definitely does. This is really interesting because if we link back to how this tragedy unfolds, we said already that this is all the more tragic because Oedipus brings it upon himself. And the tragedy unfolds because he is so hell-bent on finding out the truth. All right?
People kind of sway him not to find out the truth from the start.
Jocasta.
No, but Jocasta's actually ignorant to start off with, remember?
Like the people in the shepherd or something that they were in, and someone said that he wasn't his.
In the other city where he was raised.
Like his hubris is what's stopping everything because like the shepherd tells him not to continue looking further.
Yeah.
He's like kind of getting told here not to look
and he's the one that.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to detach him from guilt here, right? He brings this on himself, but it reinforces that this tragedy is not a tragedy that is a consequence of somebody else's actions. It's actually a tragedy that's born out of finding the truth, right? That's what the most sad part of it is. It's when people actually learn the truth that the real tragedy comes to a head. Sorry, what were you going to
Did
say?
the analysis also incorporate multifaceted, what do you call it, ideas? He could have avoided this fate if he did this and this.
Definitely, if your contention is revolving around that. Right? Remember, you need to then come up with the focus for your analysis, what it is that you're going to focus on between the two passages. If your focus is around that, then that would be a plausible argument that you'd be able to discuss. If you start trying to include a whole heap of random ideas in the one analysis, it's not going to be flowing the way it's supposed to, is it? All right. So that's when, like I said, once you've got all this in front of you, then you start making a plan. I might not include half of this. That doesn't matter, okay? As long as what I do include relates to my contention, right? But that's not the first step. The first step is, here's the passage, rip it apart. Look for what you can and note it all down so that way you've got all of it in front of you. All your ideas are there. Yes?
With our paragraphs, are they trying to, they branch off our contentions, don't they?
Yes.
With one that we were reading, I didn't see where, like, the paragraphs were linked. Like, do the paragraphs have to link as well?
They make references between each other. Yes, they should. It depends, though, how you lay it out. So that first example that we looked at had the first analysis on passage 1, and then the second analysis was on passage 2. So there then had to be links between the passages.
In passage 1, can you link, like, the stuff you're talking about in your next paragraph? You can't, can you? Because you haven't written it.
It's probably not wise. It won't make sense. We'll be reading something and we won't have any context. It's better to link backwards once you've spoken about it.
And then in the second paragraph, be like, as mentioned.
Okay, that's the best way to do it.
Do we have conclusion?
Not in the traditional sense. It's more about you drawing all of the ideas together. Okay.
Is it more important to link the two passages or the amount of links between each one?
You should be making as many links as possible, not just between the passages, but from the passages to the broader text, from the passages and the broader text to your contention. There needs to be continual ties being made. All right? Yep.
Can you refer to the passages as passage 1, passage 2?
Oh, of course. So that example we saw, it actually had that in passage, or in the second passage, or in passage 2. Okay? Well noted. Where are we within the structure of this? Let's actually talk about that now. Okay, so we're in episode 1. Right, so very early on in the play. Very early on in the play. And this is the first interaction. How many characters do we have on? Just 2, all right? All right, very good.
You don't have to link, include the chorus if it's not relevant.
Well, we haven't got it anywhere here, have we? Right?
So is that
But we'll look at the second passage. Right? So this is not in isolation.
if we get like a text like a passage like this and it doesn't tell you who's in the scene there, do you have to refer to the fact that like the chorus are probably there?
Well, no, if you remember our structure, the chorus, yes, so the chorus are entering when? What's the part of the text called? Interesting. Stasimon is the sections where they feature. But after the prologue, we have the parados, okay? And once that parados has happened, the chorus are there. They are there for the entirety of the play, and then they exit at the Exodus.
If you were to say that it's like the two characters engaging in dialogue, you don't have to mention like the fact that the chorus probably
It's again, it's going to be expected that they are there. We know that they are there, and that's one of the things that you don't need to sit there and spell it all out. We know that because it's episode 1, the chorus are on stage. All right? Yes.
We also have to make a link to the historical context too.
Well, we've already got a couple of links, haven't we? This aspect of it,
The Greek one on the
Yeah?
other page.
this,
The prophet.
right? That's linking. The fact that the prophet is there, the prophet gets his prophecies from the gods, specifically who?
Apollo.
Apollo. You've already got those links. They're there. All right. So you don't necessarily need to be searching for any more. There are already some really solid links. You've also discussed hubris. Hubris was an ideal that they used to discuss in that time. That idea of that profound arrogance in the face of the gods. Okay. So have a look. We've already got quite a lot of references to the culture. Can you see them? Okay, and on top of that, the structure, so the stichomythic dialogue, the dramatic irony are our literary techniques. They are the way that the author has constructed meaning.
And he also said Stichomythia dialogue relates to debate, which also relates to culture.
Yeah, and this is what I mean. They don't need to sit in isolation. You can actually wrap all of these together in a discussion quite easily and tick off all of those boxes. Can we move on to the second one? Let's move on to the second one.
What's the second one?
No. Let's just keep going. So, page 209 and 210. So it's just a 2-page section. And, making reference to what you said earlier, this is an extended passage from the chorus. Okay? Extended passage from the chorus. Structurally, what would we call this? A stasimon, all right? So we can make a little bit of a note there. That's structurally what it is called, but how should we reference to this passage? No? Yes, thank you. All right, we reference it as a choric ode. Why is it referenced as an ode? Because it's a song, and that relates again to an understanding of the historical culture. All right? You are showing an understanding that this was something that was traditionally sung. All right, let's go through this one. Destiny guide me always. Destiny find me filled with reverence, pure in word and deed. Great laws tower above us, reared on high, born for the brilliant vault of heaven. Olympian sky, their only father. Nothing mortal, no man gave them birth. Their memory, deathless, never lost in sleep. Within them lives a mighty God. The God does not grow old. From what you know of Greek culture, what are we talking about here? The gods themselves, all right? The gods lived where? Mount Olympus, okay? So we're making direct reference to the gods. Which is something, and you can mention this if you like, it's something that the chorus does continuously throughout the play, don't they? Right? Well, yes, that's when you start then moving away from the play a little bit and referencing the culture in a more general form. You've got here something which makes perfect sense considering the whole point of the performances. Yeah? How did it start out? It started out with that group of men, that chorus praising the gods. So it makes sense that this is what they're going to be talking about. Also, we already, and here's where you can see the connections, we already discussed fate and prophecy with the first passage because we had Tiresias. What is this first section of the choric ode talking about? Destiny. Okay, if you have a look at this, right? It's referencing that. So you can make direct links to that idea of fate. And here's where, once you start putting it all down in paper and have it all down in front of you, you'll be able to form those contentions a little bit more easily. because you'll see and you go, oh yeah, there's the common thing that I'm going to talk about. All right, let's keep going through it. So we've got this. It links to fate. We know that. If we move to the second verse, what are we talking about in this one? There's some references to God, but have a look. Have a look at this first line, right? Yeah, all right. It's talking very, very specifically and making really, really clear links between this idea of pride and what the eventual result has been with regards to Oedipus and his character. So, pride links to hubris. Sorry? Character transformation, but I guess just the consequence of it is probably more so the case here, right? Because of this pride, look what we've got to deal with. Okay, it's also been quite judging. That word tyrant is not a great word, is it? It is not the word that you would want your people to be calling you by, right? As a leader, tyrant, just here.
So it's the consequence of his hubris.
Well, it is, definitely is. His pride is the thing that causes that first argument, that first debate with Tiresias. It's the same pride that then stems into the second episode where he's having that interaction with Creon. Yes? Have a look. Where are we structurally in the play now?
Between episode 1 and 2.
Okay. So, let's add that up here. Knowing that, what has just come before this? Which interaction? What was episode 2 highlighting? Yeah, it was Creon and Oedipus. So we saw in the second episode Creon's moderation and how that's ironically contrasted with Oedipus's, arguments and the arrogance that he has. Okay, Jocasta also appeared and she's there trying to dismiss the prophecies. But more so, we had that interaction between Creon and Oedipus. And if you have a look, this verse relates directly to that interaction between Creon and Oedipus. Okay, because we saw very different leaders. Okay, we saw Creon who was measured, who was trying to be reasonable, versus Oedipus who was full of hubris, but also very attacking, very aggressive. Okay? And that tyrant, particularly some of the other dialogue that we've got just after it, reinforces his character too, and we'll get to it in a second. Sorry?
There's a, or is it crashes down the abyss? Can you use that as how he's destroying his own self?
Crashes. Oh, we'll get to that. Yeah, we're getting to that. All right, so let's start pulling apart that language, because this verse probably has the most descriptive language in it that assists us in foreshadowing what's coming, doesn't it? Okay, so violent pride, gorging, crammed to bursting with all that is overripe and rich with ruin.
Well, that links to when he's studying his eyes, right?
Well, it's actually good.
Gorging his eyes out.
He's gouging his eyes out. Different word. All right. But if you have a look at the type of language, all right, it's not optimistic language, is it? All right. Okay. It's setting the tone. That foreshadows the tragic end. And we get to those things, like, how do we see this? Rich with ruin. Okay? Violent pride. That's where we see that foreshadowing, right? All of that really specific language directs us to what's coming up. The pride part of it is definitely relating to the hubris. Okay, but the violent part of it, I think, relates to his character and relates to how he seems to deal with things. If you ever think, he murdered his father in a very violent fashion for no apparent reason other than they had a small confrontation at the crossroads. So they met at the crossroads where the three roads meet, and there was an altercation which led to him murdering everybody except for one person.
Did we do this like last semester that it didn't matter because it just adds to the character?
Okay, the details, we don't even hear them in the play, do we? Right? We don't hear, oh, what happened, partly because we can't know, they're all dead. All right, but more to the point, it's actually there to reinforce his behavior, his quick temper, more than, oh, but what was the cause of the problem? Was it because, I don't know, he cut in front of me on the road? No, it's not that sort of stuff. It's more there to reflect his nature, the fact that he's too, quick-tempered. He doesn't really think about things. And where do we see that later on in the play?
When he finds out about Jocasta and he runs into the room, going to kill him.
Yeah.
She's dead.
No. Not 2 pages after he's found out that he's married his wife and bore children, does he come in raging with a sword saying, where is she? And then not 2 paragraphs after he sees her hanging there, what does he do? Then stabs his own eyes out. You get a real theme rolling along here, don't you?
So,
Yep.
Sorry, the debating gods. Did the gods bring this upon him because he was arrogant, or was it because the gods were kind of cruel? I don't want contention there.
But it's not that because they say what we
No,
just
like
did with
what I'm saying
Tiresias.
The
I'm
gods bring it upon
saying
him.
that the truth was all its power as a part, and there's something about how because he keeps trying to find out the truth, the more he's trying to find out the truth, the more that he will get, like the consequences will fall upon him.
Yes, the consequences, I understand what you're asking though. You're asking, was this all planned? Was this really horrible end for him?
Or was this because he was arrogant?
I think it's a bit of both. The destiny was always there. The prophecy says that he will kill his father. How is...
You can't blame God for being, arrogant, because he's not. He honestly doesn't know.
But it's how he treats
It's
people.
a bit of both. It's very hard. You're getting into the real philosophy now of what's that line between fate and human agency. Not necessarily, but do you know what? Was the prophecy made because they knew that Oedipus was going to be an arrogant person? Do you get what I'm saying? Or if they hadn't tried to circumvent fate, would he have ended up killing his father in a completely different fashion? That's something you're never going to be able to know. And so it's probably a little bit tricky to try and dissect it because there's nothing in here that's going to be able to prove it, is there? In the other plays? No, you're going to have to consider this as a play unto itself. So they're not a trilogy, they don't link. You have to think about what you've just got in this play. Can we keep going with this really quickly? So we've got these descriptions of really problematic terms that are going, okay, we've got some foreshadowing. So there's the technique that's really highlighting that this isn't going to end well. Clawing up to the heights, headlong pride. Again, we see pride coming back. Have a look at the repetition of this term. It's there for a reason because what we've seen now are 2 episodes where his pride has come to the fore. Right? So the chorus are really highlighting that for us.
So, okay, can we talk about the role of the chorus as well?
Oh, definitely. You can, but without giving a dictionary definition, you can say here the choric ode functions to reinforce everything that's been apparent in the second episode. Okay.
The first one's talking about what happened in the second one.
Yeah. I mean, in many respects, you could link the two. You could say that this reflects the first argument that he encountered in episode 1 with Tiresias, right? Then you can say that this second one is reflecting the second episode. And in doing that, you're then demonstrating an understanding of what the choric odes function as. Yeah?
It's also summarizing the whole play because it's how his own pride and hubris destroys in the end.
Oh, definitely. It's picking up on those themes then, isn't it? That theme of hubris, that preoccupation that Sophocles had on bringing out the dangers of hubris, right? And you can word it exactly that way, right? Once you've found the evidence of it. So, the chorus highlights what we have seen in both episodes. And again, have a look. Crashes down the abyss, as you said, sheer doom. All right?
No, ship sink.
They can crash.
I'll crash down there.
Abyss is, an endless chasm. But you can have an abyss down at the bottom of the ocean. So definitely, if you want to link it to those images, you can. All right. More so, have a look though at what type of image it generates. Right. Well, crashes down is not good. It's not gliding down. This is going to be a violent end. Isn't it reinforcing this part here? Have a look.
Oh yeah, he's coming back down to Earth from Hubris.
Yes. All right. So link it that way.
Crashing down. Not coming down, crashing.
There's also like it's a tragedy and if you're falls, is that
Okay. So link to the tragic fall of the hero. Good. No footing helps, all foothold lost and gone, but the healthy strife that makes this city strong. I pray that God will never end that wrestling. God, my champion, I will never let you go. It goes back to praying to the gods.
People are crying out for the last stroke of hope.
do they have like a god?
No, they're multiple gods.
So then
Yeah.
why is it just saying
Interesting. Why is it talking about just one god?
Probably it's good to talk about me. As reincarnated.
Because here it goes Olympians by their own father, so they address it as their.
Mm.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. Their only father is that kind of referring to like how like the kids kind of have two fathers. Can you do that?
We're not just talking about the gods, how like nothing's greater than the gods because the city is
But then
what's above them.
Maybe discussing Apollo.
These
what's that
holy
weird thing
theism.
about how it was like,
Half an hour left.
It's actually more to do. If you have a look here, what is the subject here?
great laws? Did I say laws?
Yes. So
Laws
great
tower.
laws tower above us, reared on high, born for the brilliant, Olympian sky, their only father. It's actually talking about the laws that we live with as a society. All right? And it's saying that man can't control these, the gods control them. Okay? It's the gods that control everything. It's reinforcing that cultural belief that they have. We do need to keep moving though. All right? So if you turn over,
Translation.
you've got the last little bit of it. All right? Shh. But if any man comes striding high and mighty in all he says and does, no fear of justice, no reverence for the temples of the gods, let a rough doom tear him down, repay again his pride, breakneck, ruinous pride. Clearly, what we've got here is,
More hubris.
well, it's not hubris from them, but it's foreshadowing, right? That links to Oedipus and his hubris, doesn't it? Okay? Okay. And if you were going to make direct links, earlier on in the play, one of the first choric odes. One of the first choric odes has them praying to the gods. And do you remember what Oedipus says?
Don't listen to them, listen to me.
Yeah, you pray to the gods. What for? Listen to me. I'm the one who saved your city. So you can see the direct links, and then you can actually start making those links yourself. This bit here links to an earlier choric ode and response from Oedipus.
Isn't there an element of narcissism?
For who?
For Oedipus, for instance.
Oh.
Like, God created me. Self-centered.
Oh, definitely. And we see that in the first passage, don't we? And you can make that note in the first passage. Whether you can directly link that here, it's up to you. You have to then start making those links directly, yeah, once you've finished your plan. Let's keep going. If he cannot reap his profits fairly, cannot restrain himself from outrage, mad, laying hands on the holy things untouchable.
Do everything
Things
about
untouchable. What's he talking about?
his mum.
Right, let's have a look at it again. So they've talked about let a rough doom tear him down, repay his pride, break neck, ruin his pride. If he cannot reap his profits fairly, cannot restrain himself from outrage, mad, laying hands on the holy things, untouchable. I think you're right in some respects. This is...
He can't restrain himself from outrage. He went to kill Jocasta, remember?
Well, it's a whole heap of things. What have we seen so far? He can't seem to hold himself back from getting angry at Tiresias, getting angry at Creon.
But like in every episode, he's getting angry at someone.
Yeah, he is. And what's it telling us then? It tells us about his character, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's make a note of it. You've got this here, all right? Informs us of, it's also commenting as well, yeah? Because that's what the chorus are doing. They're commenting on Oedipus's character, his quick temper. And you've got the language there, right? He cannot restrain from outrage. And then, yes, as you mentioned, the holy things untouchable. Yeah? Mother. That don't go there. Right?
Can we just say Jocasta?
Yeah, of course you can. If that euphemizes it for you, by all means. All right. Can such a man, so desperate, still boast he can save his life from the flashing bolts of God?
Legs were tied together.
No. Flashing bolts of God, is the lightning strikes from, up high, from Zeus. Okay? So, right? The wrath of Zeus. Anger. The repercussions of. If all such violence goes with honor now, why join the sacred dance? Yes, they are. They're saying, well, what's the point of us doing what we do as a chorus and being reverent to the gods if this is what honor looks like now? Right? They're actually being quite critical. They're starting to turn on him a little bit here. Even though they still remain sort of on his side even in the next stasimon, here you're starting to see them begin to judge him. And as a result, we begin to judge him. We're looking now at his hubris, at his pride, and we're being critical of him. Okay? So, frustration. Whose frustration? The chorus?
Yeah, because they made a citizens and their king isn't doing it.
I don't know if they're frustrated, but they're starting to question everything. Okay? So, there's a shift. At the start, they were all for him. He was their savior. He was the person who saved them from the Sphinx. You can see that confidence start to slip.
So losing the trust of his people.
Yeah. Okay?
Because the chorus symbolizes the people.
And here's that continued. Never again will I go reverent to Delphi, the inviolate heart of earth, or Apollo's ancient oracle at Abe or Olympia of the fires. Unless these prophecies all come true, for all mankind to point toward in wonder. King of kings, if you deserve your title, Zeus, remember, never forget you and your deathless everlasting reign. They are dying, the old oracles sent to Laius. Now our masters strike them off the rolls. Nowhere Apollo's golden glory now. The gods go down. They're commenting really specifically on this situation where we've got a character like Oedipus who's saying, forget the gods, don't worry about them. Jocasta has just come in previously and said, no, don't be silly. I know I'm right. This prophecy has nothing to do with you. Dismissing Tiresias. So we're getting, again, this direct link to their culture.
Isn't it bad to do that though? Wouldn't
Yes.
you get judged and frowned upon?
Yeah, right? The dangers of...
Passages itself address every single question.
Well, you'd hope so. That's why we picked them. The dangers of ignoring the gods, right? How does it link? It links to that hubris again. And unless these prophecies all come true, well, they do. And we know that. All right, so what you've got there is two passages now really annotated. The next step is getting that, putting it out in front of you, and going, all right, what are some of the common things that I've pulled out of both of these passages? So what have we seen in both of the passages? We've seen definite examples of hubris. What else?
Foreshadowing.
It's been quite a bit of foreshadowing, hasn't there?
Pride was a hubris.
Yeah, let's put that in there though.
The dialogue.
So we've seen different examples of dialogue. That's something that you have to differentiate between the two. Okay.
Might use the whole link to Greek culture.
Oh, you would, but not. It's not something that you could link between the two. All right. So I'm talking about what links do we have between the two.
The fate.
Very good. Okay. So we've also got fate, fortune. How is it phrased in this Stasimon? What was the first verse? Destiny. Good. Right. So already, if you have a look, links between both passages. You've got a bit of a starting point that you can work from. Okay? So hubris, foreshadowing, fate, fortune, and destiny. We've seen both of those in each. The things that you were talking about, so things like the stichomythic structure, this being a choric ode, they're the things that you would reference and include specifically when you were talking about each passage. That's not something that you would include as how you would link them. That's something that you would include when you're talking about a passage. All right? So the stichomythic dialogue between Tiresias and Oedipus highlights whatever. But by putting that in there, haven't you then demonstrated an understanding of the structure? So you weave it into how you would introduce the passage or where you're getting the quote from.
What if we didn't do it by passages?
You would still reference where you're getting your evidence from that way. Okay? So if you were doing it, for example, say you were setting out your paragraphs according to these three here. So hubris, foreshadowing, that idea of fate and destiny. If you were going to do your analysis that way and refer to the two passages and the play as a whole under each of these umbrellas, then when you're referencing each of the passages, you would slip in those technical terms. All right? The stichomythic dialogue between Tiresias and Oedipus reinforces his pride as we see him continuously attack the blind prophet. Right? His use of, and then you introduce your evidence. Right? This is reinforced in the choric ode. right? During the second stasimon, where we see the chorus reflecting on not only the role of destiny, but also the dangers of pride. Their continual repetition of pride, violent pride, ruinous pride. Do you see how you would introduce those technical terms? And by writing them in there, by using them as the referencing tool for where you are in the play, you're showing us, I understand the structure of this play. I understand that it is broken up into episodes and stasimons. I understand that within the episodes, we've got either really long pieces of dialogue, or we've got these stichomythic dialogues that are there to generate a debate. I understand that when we get to the stasimons, these are choric odes. You've shown us that without actually having to say that, because you're using the meta-language, specifically using the meta-language.
So if you do that, what would you get? Like 7 or 9?
I don't know what mark you're going to get, but you're automatically addressing those criteria, all right? It's then how you use them.
Is that a pass?
Oh, my goodness. Let's aim for more than just a pass, shall we? All right? Does that make sense? All right, good. So that is annotating the living daylights out of these two passages.
Wait.